Hey, everybody, it is Dr. Tamara with Pussycat Talk Podcast. And I have an absolute amazing guest speaker today, Attorney Lavonne Eldet. How are you, Attorney Lavonne?
I am wonderful. How are you?
I am doing great. So we call you Lala because I know we call you Lala on the IG, or should we call you Attorney Eldet? Did I pronounce it correct? The last name?
Idolette. But
Idolette.
it doesn't matter to me. A lot of people call me Lala, but if you call me Lala, I'm gonna turn like I must know you from somewhere, not just
Well, we've known each other, what, I think it's 2 years now.
Yes.
We met at the Black podcast event in Miami 2 years
We met at
ago.
the Black Equity Con.
Right. It was
That
an
was
equity con
great.
because I'm like, which Black
Yeah.
event was it? It was a Black equity con. I'm like, I knew
Yeah.
it was something Black. Okay. But we met at the Black Equity Con. And of course, I followed you through your journey on how beautiful you looked when you were pregnant with your beautiful little girl. And look at her now. Oh my gosh, she's running the world now.
Already. And I'm like, and you told me it goes by fast. Make sure you cherish every minute. And I was like, you listen to that and you're like, yeah, I understand. I'm going to, but literally watching fastest 18 months of my life.
Mm-hmm. Wow, she's 18 months. And I think you were like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
You were about 5 or 6 months when we met. That's good. That's 2 years. That's wow. Wow. All I know is she's almost 2 and she'll be 22. And you're going to be like, where did the time go? I'm so serious. You're going to be like, where did the time go? And the world is changing so much. And what I also want people to know is you were in the Olympics. I mean, girl, you've been doing some amazing things throughout your lifetime. This is amazing. So, what was it like being a part of the Olympics?
So the Olympics was a great experience because you get to like see how more similar the world is than different. The entire world has a delegation of their best athletes coming to one place to compete. And we were just vibing, chilling, hanging out, after competing, everybody's friends. And so it was a
It's
phenomenal
amazing.
experience to just be there with not only like the hugeness of people who I sort of already knew because they were superstar athletes from America and like that was in college when I was in college, but then to meet people from other countries and listen to their stories and get to know them. Now I have friends everywhere I go, which is like a blessing.
Around the world.
Um,
Yeah.
so that when you land in a place, you could like, hey, this is where I'm at. Tell me where I should go, what good places. If I need somebody to look out for me, you gonna look out for me. They're like, yes. So a
How long
phenomenal.
ago was it?
2012 in London.
Wow. 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 So yeah, that's 12 years ago. So you're still a spring chicken now.
I'm really not. Like, in terms of business, people will say, you are definitely still young. But then I meet so many young business people now that I'm like, okay, so I'm definitely not y'all's level of young. I'm almost 40.
Hmm.
But in business, that's still relatively young.
Yeah, it is. I mean, at 55, I can't even believe I'm 55, so that still kind of blows my mind. Like, time has really just like all of a sudden, it seemed like it jumped from 35 to 55 like that. Okay.
Yeah.
And it really did. If that's what it felt like, it felt like I went through a time warp. But I definitely will say the world has changed. The world has changed in this small amount of time. And it's really changed. I like to call it the plant scandemic since that transpired. And that's almost 4 years old as of this March. How was life for you then versus what it is now?
Man, so a lot of good things happened for me because of the pandemic. One of the things that stands out the most is most people don't know this, but a good amount of the businesses that I have, they're family-owned businesses. So my father and I own a mortgage company together, and he doesn't listen to me. However, so the real reason why we're partners is because I had to buy my way in because that was the only way I knew that he would respect my opinion. So
Mm.
he still didn't listen though. So I just operate in a way that sort of like bypasses him as a bottleneck. Then when the pandemic hit, things that I implemented in 2015 and 16, which were automations and like back end systems where you don't have to have people to come to your office, he had to use them because of the pandemic. And it was like the
Mm.
first time he was really like, wow, you really know what you're talking about. And I'm like, it took the whole
I've
world
been
shutting down. Listen, I'm like, you prepared me to be this person, and then you didn't respect who I became because you think you have the most wisdom,
mm.
right? So it took a long time to get that respect, but now it has turned the corner where it's completely like, okay, this is what we're doing. All right, this is the direction we're going, and we have much more balanced power. So I am very thankful for the pandemic, but I'm also a social introvert, so I absolutely loved being home, being able to focus on working on the business while not having to see people in person, touch people, and all that kind of stuff. My mother laughed about it because she said, "This must be your time," because I'm
Mm-hmm.
culture where everybody kisses on cheeks and hugs and all of that. And I'm always like, I try to wave from the door so that people just don't start touching me. So she's like, I know this is your time. You are
Mm-hmm.
enjoying.
Well, that's amazing. And what a lot of people don't know about you, which I didn't know until I was like, what? What? Because I saw a different side of you, right? Is that you are an attorney.
Yes.
That's incredible. So, how long have you been an attorney?
So
And what
um
type of attorney are you for the audience?
my my claim to crazy is I was in law school when I went to the Olympics. So it was after my first year of law school, and I finished in 2014, passed the bar right away. So 2014, I actually was practicing the bankruptcy court while I was in law school, which was a jump start into more or less what I do now, but just from the other side of wealth strategy. So our practice, I would call it, is 5 points. Business, which pretty much encompasses asset protection and privacy. So we set up entities, trusts, that sort of thing as your business foundational pieces. We do
Hmm.
securities, which is the setting up of the documentation required for you to raise money from outside people who don't have any participation in the business. I call that creating your own asset because it allows people to participate with you. Then we do so investment is not advice. So it's more or less analysis. So if you are presented with an opportunity to invest with others, we will look through the legal documents, we will do the due diligence for you, and we'll give you a report that says these people are either full of shit or not. And the math ain't math and Ortius. And never advice, meaning like I'm not going to tell you you should or you shouldn't do it. I'm just going to give you like this is what it's saying, this is the risk, this is how much the return is going to be. And then the next part of uh, the wealth conundrum is how to mitigate taxes. And we do that by being an abundant giver. And so we set up
Mm.
donor advised funds, private family foundations. The only thing we really don't do is public charities, but that's just because they're not sustainable. So I prefer when people put together something that will have a bigger impact. So
And be
that's
more sustainable.
that's right.
Hmm. Wow, that is just like, I knew you were smart, but I didn't know you were that smart, right? Because again, you just exude, again, I saw you from a different perspective as a mom, just happy for you, glowing the way you were glowing, and just, offering encouragement, when I would DM and I would see, and I would be like, oh my gosh, she's absolutely gorgeous, which she's your twin. You guys do be twinning. And so how has motherhood been for you?
So I've been very blessed that I have like the kind of baby that you can maneuver and take wherever, and she's just with it, and she'll smile, but she's stoic. Don't touch me, and
Like
and so
mommy.
so for me, the transition has been pretty smooth because I decided really early on that I was going to hop right back into business. As a matter of fact, so I'm like a crazy person. So we launched a bunch of hedge funds while I was still in the hospital. I had preeclampsia, so they kept me for an extra week, and I'm just in the bed doing paperwork because I'm supposed to lay here. What are y'all talking about? So
Exactly.
it's my personality type. And then I took my first trip away from her when I was 3 months, when she was 3 months old, and I had to pump too much. And I was like, not doing that again. I'm taking her with me. And from there, she's now been to 5 countries at speaking engagements with me and to go and negotiate deals. And to
Oh
be
my,
honest, one of the things that I didn't realize was going to be the blessing of having a little baby with me is there have been several people who said to me they organically would not have walked up to me because maybe I looked intimidating or whatever the case may be, but they missed their baby. So they walked up and they wanted to have a conversation about it. And then when we started talking about business, they're like, oh my gosh, you're the person who I actually came here to meet. And we exchanged contacts. And I'm like, look at you, baby. You are an attractive magnet of the people who I'm
yes,
supposed to be meeting. I am also
yes.
blessed, so I do have
Babies
full
are,
time help.
babies are magnets.
Hmm.
Babies are a good luck charm, in my opinion. Babies are good luck charms and they're the right people magnet for some reason. And
Yes.
I totally agree with you on that. And she is just the most beautiful little girl with those beautiful cheeks that I have ever seen. So, again, I'm so happy that you have become a part of the community of moms.
Yeah.
Okay. But I want to ask you some questions, because folks is asking, right?
Hmm.
Vincent.
Okay.
How do you feel about that? How do you feel about fencing? How do you feel about the exemption? How do you feel about the trust aspect of it? And how do you feel about being a private citizen, of America as opposed to a citizen of the United States? How are you tackling some of these things when you're dealing with people?
So
I know it's a
I know
lot.
that was like a combo. Overall, I would say that I am much more concerned about public records than I am about FinCEN. So when all of this stuff started coming out, my whole objective with all of our clients is how are we getting your name out of public records? Because if you're not attached to the public record, there's no one is going to be asking FinCEN who's the beneficial owner of the entity, because unless the business does something to somebody, there's no reason to do so. So
Hmm.
that's my approach to it. It doesn't matter. I will give you all my beneficial information and all of that, but I definitely want to make sure that there is a strong disconnect as it pertains to public information. So now the people who deserve to be sued will likely still be sued because their businesses are actually injuring people. But the people who are just litigious and decide like, Dr. Tamara be outside a lot. I'm trying to see what she doing, and they're gonna look up what you own, and then decide to sue you and
Hmm.
every company you own. We're trying to avoid that. Period. So that's my number one focus. And then right now they're being overloaded. I've already filed about 20 or so beneficial interest filings in FinCEN, and probably 6 or 7 times I got an error, we're overloaded message, which means that people are trying to be compliant. I think there's way more panic
And they're
than is.
fearful. I think
Yeah, I
also,
think.
too, they're fearful. So they're trying to hurry up and get it in.
Yes, because most people who are talking about it are only going at the angle of like, you'll be punished if you don't do it by this amount of time. And the truth is that like if you had an entity before the beginning of this year, you have a whole year to get compliant. It's not the conundrum that people are making it into, but 90 days is also plenty of time for the 4 pieces of information that they're asking for. But as it pertains to trust, I would say that you shouldn't have a statutory trust in the first place. So
Correct. It should be non-statutory.
that's right. So we don't want our trust information in public records. So once you get beyond that, they don't need to know anything about what you have going on. And then my other piece of advice is always go bigger. The faster you go bigger, it don't matter. If you make $5 million, you don't have to comply anyway.
5 million and 20 employees, right? It's
It's
either
it's
the 20
or
employees,
it's
right?
or
Or
Yep.
right, and I think that that's essential. But a lot of small businesses can't afford to have 20 employees. So yes, like you're
Mhm.
saying, they need to go bigger. So we love the trust factor. We have been getting educated and learning more and more, and like we created our faith-based organization
Mhm.
and we created our family trust, which we created the ministry. We
Mhm.
created the family and we created the business. So, of course, Marcus wanted me to ask you a question. He was like, why wasn't she on with all of us? I said, because I'm the one that communicates with her and I want to talk to her. But he wanted me to ask the question in reference to in an operating agreement, do you have to add a section for your holding company to have 98% ownership of your parent company?
In the
Because the
operating
question
agreement for the
is,
holding company?
yeah, I guess it would be because the question is this big 25%, right?
Yep.
If it's 25%, you still have to put your name on the paperwork,
Mhm.
but you don't have all of you don't own more than 25% of the company.
Yeah.
So can you explain why is that so important? Why is there a 2% factor as opposed to all of it? Okay.
Okay.
And why did they put that 25% in play?
So the reason why I like 98 too is number one, because you get more protection from having a multi-member LLC. Lots of adjudication on the subject. Number two, the reason why it's 2% and not much more is because I like simple math. And when I'm doing the distribution of profit, I don't want it to, it sort of started off with I need the profit to be below a certain point because I only want this much income. And then I just like the way it worked. So there's no hard and fast rule on that, but I always want it to be less than 20%. The reason that you always want it to be less than 20% is banking in general, outside of FinCEN, requires all owners above 20% to present their financials. So
Mm-hmm.
if you are buying whatever it is that you're buying, if you only own 2%, they'll never ask for your stuff. So whenever I tell people all the time, if you have partners who got the strongest financials, put them as the majority owner. Everybody else needs to have less equity than that. It doesn't matter how you split the profits. It only matters how the ownership is broken down. And so
Mm-hmm.
the paperwork needs to be a certain way because I don't want you to go and say, because most people feel like just because your name is on the deed that you all have to be on the mortgage. And I think that that's bad planning, to be honest. So I want strongest financials, have the most. And then the other question is about, 25% for FinCEN. So
Right.
that has to do with banking as well. And so they're looking at it from a ownership that is significant as it pertains to a small business. So most likely if you own less than 25% of a small business, you're not making very much money in or having that much control if you are just a person who it has votes or whatever. So that's their rationale that 25% is a reasonable amount to say we probably should know who you are if you own more than that.
So when it comes to the operating agreement, as the question that my son wanted me to ask you, in an
Mhm.
operating agreement, do you have to add a section for your holding company to have 98% ownership of the parent company? So based on what you're saying, and you're
So
saying
this
if it's under 20, I'm
company owns
sorry.
100% of all the underneath companies. So whether it's the parent company of some more companies, but anything that's underneath my holding company is owned 100% by the holding
Okay. That answers that question. All right. So
company.
it deals with trust. Why should somebody have a trust, in your opinion? Like, why do you think they should have a common law trust?
So anything that is worth arguing over should be in trust. And that is partially because probate court sucks. And I'm going to tell you from a lot of experience buying stuff from people in probate court, the last person you want to make the final decisions on your things going to your family is a judge because they do
That's
not give a
right.
damn about your
That's
wishes.
right. They don't care.
Yes, exactly. So that's number one. So even if it's just a revocable trust, which I don't use so much, but we do use them, the purpose is so that your wishes are carried out in your last days or after you are gone for your legacy. And you don't have another third party who ain't in your family who don't care about you making decisions about where things go. And it has lots of fees too. So also, and then from the estate tax perspective, which won't affect most people, well, it will affect many more people in a few years because right now the maximum amount that you can gift to outside of your estate at the moment is 13,800,000. So a lot of people are like, doesn't apply to me, doesn't matter. Cool. But that number is going to get reduced. Well, that's what's up for vote, is that that number gets reduced from 13 million to 5 million. There are so many more people who will be affected by that because they have businesses that are worth that, land that's worth that. And when you talk about the culmination of a person's life, um, making people pay taxes on things you already own is ridiculous. So you want it
And
to
that
be
they've already paid taxes on. Truthfully,
exactly.
they've already paid taxes on it. You know, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm just
Yep.
like, wow, that's just another way of them dipping back into and double dipping into the pocket to the pot.
That's right. And so for a lot of people, especially if once they're over this threshold gifting amount, you can't even gift it into a trust. You have to either exchange it or sell it into your insurance policies, into your but you could do it over time so that you don't have a taxable occurrence either. So
That's the vote that they're supposed to be voting on in April, correct?
yep.
Is that vote right there? Because they're in a sense is because the whole rumor mill was they're getting rid of irrevocable trust. I was like, what? I was like,
So
that's going to
that's
affect a lot of people.
So that's something that is not even possible, mainly because of the unlimited right to contract in the United States, but the putting a maximum on your ability to gift your things out of your name in your lifetime is what's going to severely affect irrevocable trust.
So guys, do you hear Lavonne dropping these nuggets? This is like important stuff that we need to know because in our community, we're so oblivious. A lot of people don't know about trust or they don't understand it. They feel it's too complex. A lot of people don't know about the fencing and they're walking blind. That's what my concern was. It's like, okay, you're walking blind. If you have this, if you haven't used it, if you're not using it, close it. If you're, if you haven't used the EIN number, contact well, you have to write a letter to them if you're no longer going to use the EIN number. But I'm like, dissolve it so you don't get in trouble. But if you have anything attached to that EIN number, any debt, then yes, you got to still pay for it. But
Yeah.
I guess what it is everyone is just so, it just feels like an invasion of privacy, just the
Yeah.
whole thing. It's like, what's the purpose of doing Wyoming or Delaware LLCs? Do they
Yeah.
even, are those still in play or just people should just get their LLCs from the US and just place it under the trust?
Yeah, so it's still in play because the ability to use a nominee actually exists in every state, but Wyoming and Delaware being more famous for them and not even asking who the actual owner is a much more private place. However, you can still use a nominee. The only difference is if you started a company since January 1st of this year, you have to disclose who the nominee is also. But definitely use nominees. Don't put your name in public records. There are plenty of services who will do it for you, or use somebody who you trust, who you definitely contract to get your stuff back because I trust no one. So everybody pays cash and has documentation. So even if it's your mom, we are always going to have our things in writing so that because if their name is on the entity on the internet, they have the ability to lie and go and
Well,
open
your
up bank accounts and debt and things of that nature. So you want to make sure that you're protecting yourself by having all of the next steps after you use a nominee in place where you get full control. They have the agreements in place that says that they're not actually a part of the company. They cannot encumber the company. They cannot act as an agent for the company or anything so that, you know, the tricky people don't do tricky people things on you.
It's interesting that you say that. I trust no one. I kind of feel that same way as well. I'm like, nah, that's okay. Put it in writing. What is a nominee for those who don't know? What's a nominee?
Yes, it's a person who stands in your place for public record purposes. So America is really built on the idea of a person's ability to be let alone, which means that their things can be private. So every state does allow a nominee to stand in your place. That's why when you're filling out the forms with your state, it lets you put what the person is to the business when they put it in. So it could be a representative. That's a nominee.
Mm. So if somebody has gotten an LLC and they have put, like I always tell everyone, make sure you have a registered agent. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you want, if anything it goes down and you're being sued, it goes to them first, then it comes to you. And
Mm-hmm.
plus they keep you updated on what you need to do annually, making sure that you pay for your annual, fee that you do on your LLC.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to that other portion, managing member or a member or organizer,
Yep.
would you say that's the nominee person?
Yes, that's the nominee person. So your registered agent is there to take service of process for you, to be the person who people contact if something is going down with you. Most people use their attorneys for that or a service, but the nominee also offers that exact same service that holds themselves in the public in your space.
Now what we did is we put the trust there.
Mhm.
Would you say that's okay to do that?
As long as it doesn't have your name in it.
On
So
the
like
trust or on the
on the trust or
oh
on
yeah.
the yeah.
Okay, okay. All right, so we'll have a side conversation on that. Okay. But I think, I get what you're saying. I
But
think
the other thing, the other reason why I I'm not apprehensive about the use of the trust in that space, but the reason why I don't use the trust in that space, because in a lot of states it requires you to then, because like in Florida, the reason why my family trust is listed with the state, which makes it a statutory trust, quote unquote, or under the need to send in beneficial information, is because I put that the trust was an owner of something that was in public records, and they won't allow you to do that without first registering with the state. And so
right.
I don't want none of that conundrum no more. So I won't be doing that ever again.
Okay. Yeah, because okay, so talking about a trust, and there was a city in Florida, which I'm sure you know about, Seneca, who was, a black town, and they were under a trust, and they were trying to take the town, but they couldn't because they were under a trust. Do you know about that?
I do not know about that. I have no idea where that is.
Yes, that's a history lesson.
Oh
So I
wow,
know you heard of Rosewood.
of
You
course.
heard of Rosewood, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So it was very similar to Rosewood back in those days, but the city was under a trust. And
Mm-hmm.
so they could not take the city because they were under a trust. So the
Interesting.
trust just has a lot of, yeah, it has a lot of interesting intricates, but again, they don't really show our community about these things. So another question that people want to know is, can you get funding under your trust?
Oh yeah, of course. A trust is just an entity type, so it can build its own credit. It will eventually stand on its own with its capital. And the better part about it is when you do business now, you're going to have to ask to speak to 75 managers, because the person who sits in the front of the bank knows nothing. So just mentally prepare
Hmm.
yourself if you're trying to do business actually using the trust. But the best part about it is all you're ever having to deliver to them in terms of documentation is an affidavit of trust and then a letter of sufficiency of collateral from your attorney. They are not going to see your trust documentation whatsoever.
Right. Here in Georgia, we use what is called a certificate of trust.
Mm-hmm.
um, that it has the affidavit. Well, it has, it's notarized and all of that. And
Mm-hmm.
so, as a matter of fact, one of our mentees, they actually opened up a trust. They did a trust with us, and they did it in Florida. And so she opened up her account. So she was excited about being able to just transfer her things over. I just think that now we need more education,
Mm-hmm.
and you have the education. And what would be three of the most important things that you would tell somebody as to why they need a trust?
You need a trust to protect yourself and your legacy from bad decisions, accidents, and life happenings in general. Um, so most people sort of know the story. Well, they know the concepts around it, right? But the Kennedys, for example, one of the sons got into a car accident and killed a guy. Got a huge
Mm,
judgment against him personally. They can't get any of that money. All they can do is put a judgment against him personally, which means that when he gets a distribution, the distribution is subject to garnishment. But if you also have a discretionary trust, you don't have to make distributions. So it's very easy to continue to take care of your family even through very unfortunate situations. So that's one. The other is always, I give the example of the divorced son. So the divorced son ends up with this huge judgment for alimony for the lady who never worked. I don't want my assets going to these bad decisions. And unfortunately, ending marriages do happen. Cool. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to leave with how you came though. So um the alimony is subject to distributions. They can't touch trust assets. So now they may have a 5-year alimony. We can choose to not give distributions during that time if you have a discretionary trust where the trustee only makes distributions based on their discretion. And so the discretionary
Girl,
choice
folks
is
gonna love that. Man, watch, they gonna love that one. The men that's gonna be watching this episode, they gonna be like, "What? What? I could do what? I have to do what? Just put it on the." Okay, I'm sorry. And your last one.
and the last one is to protect your kids, yourself, your family from youth. So what happens when a
Mm,
person is young is they've not gone through a lot of things and they think they know. Everybody thinks they're grown when they turn 18, then 21, then 25. You think
yes.
you know nothing, right? So what happens, that gets exacerbated if I give you $1 million. But if it's held in trust, it allows you to grow at a pace that, and some people may say this is too much control, da 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 da. But at the end of the day, you always have the option to make your own money. So if you want my
This is
money,
that's entitlement. As far as
yeah,
that's the level of entitlement.
if you want my money, what you're going to have to do is be growing. And so you'll have this to live on, you'll have this to invest. It'll be enough to survive where you don't feel like you got to go work at Walmart. But at the end of the day, if you want whatever more, it's going to require certain things, right? And so it's partially to hold them accountable to making the family better over time, but also
Mhm.
so they don't self destruct. The amount of people who I know whose children get, and these are still just distributions, mind you, but the distributions are ridiculous. So let's say they get $400,000 a month, they're in college, and they are using that money
In
to
college.
do heroin with their friends is a number that you wouldn't want to imagine. And so a lot of that is fixable by not giving them astronomical sums of money. Although if you want to do heroin, more likely you're still going to do it, even if you only got $100. But I'm just saying is that we're not going to let you
Right.
overdose and make bad decisions with our money. So
Right.
that would be the third most important.
Guys, she is dropping some bars today. Okay. So we got to pivot real quick for the last 10 minutes of this actual interview. And we're going to just talk a little bit. So, what is it like? You have your baby daddy,
Uh-huh.
okay, and you have your baby. All right. So, what is it like going out on dates with your significant other, or just trying to have an actual life outside of all of this business work? I mean, does he think you're a workaholic? I mean, like seriously, I mean, because you be doing a lot. You are always traveling. So, what is it
Yes.
like for you and your hubby,
So we're
your
blessed
significant other?
we are blessed in a lot of capacities. One, he's also an entrepreneur who is always busy. So we're equally busy and we make time for each other, which I think adds a lot more value to the time. So we do go on a date night once a week. We spend a significant amount of time talking and strategizing about business, reading and introducing new books and podcasts. Like we're pretty boring to other people. They're like, y'all just listen to books all the time. And um, but then on top of that, we do also have a full time. You will call her a nanny, but she's really more like a house manager. So the house is always clean, food is always made, clothes are always washed and put away. Like all of the things that like take away from the time that you could spend with your significant other and your kids. And so for me, the most important thing for us was always we needed that first. We don't need a bigger house. Our house is fine. And so focusing on things that give you back your time was the most important
Mhm.
for us. And so we get to spend a lot of time together. And then I'm always going somewhere to a conference to speak or whatever. And I'm always like, I need to travel with my baby and my boyfriend and all of that. And so most people understand that. And we turn it into mini vacations. We might stay an extra day or something like that. And I have to force him to network for the most part because he doesn't enjoy that. He has a twin brother though, so it makes it seem like he
Oh,
networks
wow.
all the time. Because people
Oh,
are like,
wow.
"Hey, your husband," and I'm like, it was his brother. He doesn't talk to people, so
You're like, he's the quiet one. He's the quiet one. Right, right. But
yeah.
that I think that's good. I mean, you guys got to get away, a couple of weeks ago. And I was just like, oh, no, girl, why you didn't tell me you was doing that? I would not have been speaking to you right now. Okay. But I do appreciate, the fact that you're willing to come on and just share the knowledge because we want to make sure people are getting the right information, that you're able to still have a business, still be able to do this and still balance life because a lot of people are not as blessed, they don't have house managers, so just in budgeting the time. And I think, like you said, everybody can get their money up. I don't think that we're in a time where information is so powerful that you can create and literally make $100,000 very quickly, even 1 million, digitally in this space.
Yep.
So in protecting ourselves, trust is the number one thing as far as, based on the conversation.
Yep.
Everybody should have a trust. Everyone should protect themselves. Everyone should have a house manager, guys. We all need a house manager, okay? I thought I was doing something with the cleaning lady, but I need a house manager, okay?
But
All
the most
right, because I definitely don't like to clean no house.
I know that's right. But
Say
no,
it
the one
again.
I was about to say, the one thing that I'm gonna say is like when it comes to putting things in trust and building businesses and all of that, my number one principle, which makes all of the things actually work, is we put the money away and we only spend what it makes. So our principle never declines. My number one principle is we don't
Mm,
spend the principal of our money. If I had to work to earn it, I won't spend it. I'm going to put it over and I'm going to put it into something that makes money, whether that's just me lending it out or in some long-term asset, but it creates the environment where we enjoy working, so we do work. But if you got sick or if something happens to you, you're not like in a panic, like, oh man, I couldn't show up for the meeting, and now I couldn't do the live, and now I can't. And so putting things in due course and not raising your expenses until the investments can pay for it is the key to like creating, I call it a peaceful life, because most people think that they want to have like a big house in Palm Beach with a plane and all that kind of stuff. And I would say
mhm.
more than likely you'll just be bored as heck because you won't like your neighbors. And it won't be a single thing for you to do. So just
Mm.
find something that you actually enjoy doing on a normal basis that like lights you up, but also get the money into places that give you a return so that you can live that versus like hustle. Hustle is not peaceful.
No, it's not. When people are chasing money, they never catch it. I really honestly believe that. When you're chasing it, you will never catch the money. And I think if you put things in place that allow you to love what you do and then turn it into something that you're able to make money from, you're rewarded that way, especially when you're helping other people. And that's what I know that you do. And I've just been so grateful. Guys, you guys don't really understand how powerful this woman is right here. So I want you to be able to, Miss Lavonne, give everybody your social media handle so they can follow you, so they can acquire your service as an attorney, to help put some things in place. What is your social media handle?
So on Instagram, I'm Lala Hurdles too. On Twitter, I'm Idolette, which is my last name. I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn. It is the best place to actually have a conversation with me. Somebody runs my Instagram page. I do look at it, but unless it's in that primary one, more than likely I missed your message. But if you're really like, I need something from you tomorrow, and maybe you're looking for a job, you want to come to a conference or something, because I do take young people who are looking to get into private equity. And you don't even gotta be young to be honest. You just gotta have desire and show up. But I
Have a
take them
passion,
to
right?
private equity conferences because you are literally one contact away from changing your life. And literally, private equity changed my life because at the time I was doing securities already, but it was literally Dr. Tamara, you got some money, you want to buy a commercial deal, cool. We'll put together a debt package for you. You put down the equity, you own a thing. Then I go to this conference and they're like, why would you use our money? That's offensive. I would never do that. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, yeah. And we only do deals 80 million and up. And I'm like, okay, say less. I'm going to learn everything that you're going to do.
Wow.
Yeah. And that
Okay,
one
can I get a loan? Can I get a
thing,
loan?
yeah,
You said 80 billion? Can I get a loan?
no, you use 80 million from everybody else and go do the project. And the project will make you whatever it makes you. But I had been so stuck in the way that I was raised, which is you save and then you invest by yourself and you do these things and the value is in owning all of it. And then I'm like, you guys tricked me. There are people making billions of
Yeah.
dollars by doing things together. Why are we
Well,
buying these?
again, we're the walking dead.
Yeah.
We are literally the walking dead. We're going by the rules of somebody else, what they put in place for us, but they're operating on a different level. So
That's
we're over here doing what they told us to do, and then it's handed down through generation and generation and generation, and we're walking literally like the walking dead while they're over here doing something else. So
that's
to
right.
be able to open up the doorway, the internet, in my opinion, that's what it did. It opened up the doorway for us to gather and collect information. And here it is. We wouldn't have met if it wasn't for us being at Black Equity, Con, and then you being there. And that was all because it was through the internet. So
Yep.
it's about relationships, like you said.
Yep.
Everything is about relationships. And I think that's essential to making sure that you foster important relationships, get into the room. I already know Marcus is going to want to do what you just said. I'm just
Yeah. I
him
love
and Alex are going to the girl because my mental capacity at this moment in time, everybody's like, tomorrow you should go get your law license. And I'm just like, for consumers, and I'm just like, I'm really contemplating that, but I'm not the best test taker. I can gather all the information, but I am not the best test taker. But I tell you, I am just an advocate for people like yourself. You are a huge advocate for the folks in the community. And again, I thank you for joining us. Again, guys, you can reach her at Lala Hurdles on IG, and if you're on LinkedIn, Ida Let. So make sure you do a search for her. Again, she'll be more than happy to help you. She is just that kind of person. She is super kind. So thank you, Lavonne, for being here with us today. We
Thank you so
appreciate
much
you.
for having me. I absolutely adore you and all the kind words you've always given me. And it was so crazy because I met her sons. I met your sons months before I met you. I just didn't know they were your sons. And I'm
That's
like,
crazy.
this is how small the world is. A good impression and good energy is important. Because imagine had I been mean to your sons or something when I met them before, you would have been like, and they seen you talking to me. This is
Well,
what I try to tell people all the time.
well, let me
No.
let me say this part. Let me say this part because Marcus did say he met you before that, right?
Uh-huh.
And he was like, right. He was like, "Mom, she is so nice. I didn't know that she was." I said, we DM from time to time. I'm always like, "Hey, girl, how you doing? How's the baby?" I said, only because we just had a different type of relationship. And I said, but I love her. She's just a sweet woman. And he was like, "Well, Mom, she does this, this, and this." And I was like, I am so blown away. But like you, I've been trying to stay off the internet, off of social media because it is addictive.
Yeah,
Okay, and we don't have that kind of time. We got too many people that we're trying to help.
that's
Okay.
right.
And that's what's important is helping the people, helping the masses, helping. For me, it's about helping the community because as they continue to make the switch, because that's what the plant scamdemic was, it was to literally set us up for something else. There's
Mhm.
going to be so many people left behind. And I'm afraid for those people who do not file what they're supposed to file, them suckers getting those fines, and it's going to be crazy. So we got to definitely do a part two. guys. So make sure you guys follow her. Make sure you use her service because she is amazing. Okay. And we will be back with another video. This is Dr. Tamara with Pussycat Podcast and the Fanpreneurs. We'll be back with another episode with another amazing guest, just like Lala Hurdles with Lavonne. That'll let. You guys have a good one. We'll see you next time.